Trump just dropped a bombshell that proves Western civilization isn't dead yet. Yesterday, he signed an executive order mandating classical architecture for all federal buildings. You won't believe this. While Europe crumbles under its own moral weakness, America is rebuilding its greatness stone by stone. I'm Andrew Meet Rich, former analyst for a state-run media outlet, now exposing the truth they don't want you to hear. Today we're diving into two stories that will shock you about the state of Western values: Trump's architectural revolution that's making liberals melt down, and Germany's insane justice system that protects Turkish crime bosses while extraditing Ukrainian refugees to their potential doom. You think you know how corrupt things are? Just imagine that for a second. Like this video, subscribe for truth over propaganda, and consider supporting independent journalism, because tomorrow the news could change everything. Trump's executive order isn't just about buildings, it's about identity, heritage, and the soul of a nation. Notable founding fathers agreed with these assessments and attached great importance to federal civic architecture. President George Washington and Secretary of State Thomas Jefferson consciously modeled the most important buildings in Washington, D.C. on the classical architecture of ancient Athens and Rome. They wanted to visually connect America with the birthplace of democracy itself. These cherished landmarks, built to endure for centuries, have become an important part of our civic life. The White House, the Capitol Building, the Supreme Court, the Department of the Treasury, and the Lincoln Memorial became iconic symbols of our system of government. But then came the cultural Marxists. In the 1950s, the federal government largely replaced traditional designs for new construction with modernist ones. This practice became official policy after the Ad Hoc Committee on Federal Office Space proposed what became known as the Guiding Principles for Federal Architecture in 1962. The guiding principles implicitly discourage classical and other traditional designs known for their beauty, declaring instead that the government should use contemporary designs. And now listen carefully. The result was architectural horror. Some of these structures, such as the Hubert H. Humphrey Department of Health and Human Services building and the Robert C. Weaver Department of Housing and Urban Development building, were controversial, attracting widespread criticism for their brutalist designs. The federal architecture that ensued, overseen by the General Services Administration, was often unpopular with Americans. The new buildings ranged from the undistinguished to designs even GSA now admits many in the public found unappealing. In Washington, D.C., new federal buildings visibly clashed with the existing classical architecture. Brutalism, the perfect name for architecture that brutalizes the human spirit. But here's where it gets even worse. The same architectural poison that infected America also infected Europe. Those concrete monstrosities weren't accidents, they were ideological weapons. The establishment wanted ugly buildings because they produce ugly thoughts. Classical architecture inspires greatness, nobility, civic virtue. That's exactly what they feared. Trump understands this psychological warfare better than any president since Reagan. The order ensures that applicable federal public buildings are constructed in a style that uplifts and beautifies public spaces, ennobles our nation, and commands respect from the general public. The order calls for the construction of federal buildings in a way that uplifts and beautifies public spaces and commands respect from the general public. Every column, every arch, becomes a declaration that America remembers its roots. New federal building designs should, like America's beloved landmark buildings, uplift and beautify public spaces, inspire the human spirit, ennoble the United States, command respect from the general public. While European leaders surrender their heritage piece by piece, Trump rebuilds American identity brick by brick. The architectural deep state is panicking because they know what this means. In Washington, D.C., federal architecture has become a discordant mixture of classical and modernist designs. Trump is ending this chaos. You won't believe this, but the president also oversaw the installation of a pair of gigantic flagpoles on the White House lawn that fly large American flags. Inside the White House, the Oval Office itself has been adorned with lashings of gold decoration, which Trump ordered from a craftsman in Florida who'd worked on his Palm Beach estate. Beauty matters. Tradition matters. Heritage matters. What do you think? Comment below. If you're still with me, hit that like button. It tells me you want the truth, not just the headlines. But if you think this is inspiring, wait until you hear what's happening in Germany's justice system. Germany just released a Turkish crime boss who should rot in prison for life. Let me repeat that. Frankfurt court freed 26-year-old Ismail A., leader of the Kasperler gang, connected to over 100 violent crimes. Turkish authorities linked this gang to more than 100 violent offenses. The reason for his release? The German Federal Constitutional Court decided a lower court's decision ordering the extradition of an individual to Turkey violated German law and Germany's obligation deriving from international law. The GFCC ruled that Turkey highly will not respect minimum standards deriving from international law, so Germany protects Turkish gangsters because Turkey violates human rights. Makes sense, right? You see the pattern, right? In 2023 alone, from 78 requests from Ankara on extradition, Germany approved only 25 and rejected the rest on similar grounds. Germany systematically shields Turkish criminals while lecturing everyone about justice and human rights. According to internal studies, Turkish crime groups consist of mafia clans from Turkey active throughout Germany in extortion, weapon trafficking, and drug trafficking. The annual report on organized crime showed that there were 61 Turkish gangs in Germany. According to the report, alongside their more traditional fields of drug smuggling, gangs are also increasingly turning their attention to burglary, car theft, and fraud. People from the Balkans have strong connections to their home country, where they can go underground when they want to evade police. And here's what's really happening. This isn't about law. It's about ideology. German courts have become Turkish crime family protection services. Just imagine that for a second. Here's what's really interesting about Germany right now. In today's latest poll results, the right-wing AfD party, known to everyone as Alternative for Germany, has once again become the leader, gaining 26% of votes. The CDU-CSU, Merz's union, is in second place with 25%. Although the gap remains small, Merz's union will now have to make maximum efforts to break ahead. Social Democrats got 13%, while the Greens hold their 12% support. Within the Christian Democratic Union, Merz's party and coalition, they're discussing possible significant tax increases, including inheritance tax for family business owners. Previously, heirs were exempted from tax if they continued managing the business and preserved jobs. Now part of Merz's union parliamentarians are ready to abolish this rule. But this proposal has already caused protests in the Young Entrepreneurs Association. Association representatives assert and declare that tax increases will become a funeral bell for family, small, and medium enterprises. In their opinion, companies will create reserves in advance, reduce investments and jobs, and this could seriously slow the country's economic recovery. You need to think before making such decisions. That's the warning that's been issued. Turkish crime bosses get protection because of human rights concerns, but Ukrainian refugees get shipped back to face forced conscription and potential death on the battlefield. Here's where it gets even worse than you can imagine. What awaits the deported and extradited Ukrainians is not only a likely premature death in an imperialist war, but also violence and torture. In the basements and windowless rooms where new recruits are held, the TCR forces them through verbal threats and increasingly physical violence to voluntarily sign forms waiving their rights and committing to all sorts of military service. The TCR increasingly uses overt torture as a means of instilling fear in mobilized men and forcing them into submission. The more desperate the situation of the Ukrainian army becomes, the more brutal these measures become. German justice in action. You won't believe this double standard. Like, subscribe. Comment below what you think about this insanity. You see what's happening here? This isn't about justice, it's about the complete moral collapse of Western institutions. While Trump rebuilds American greatness with classical architecture that honors our heritage, Germany's courts protect Islamic criminals while abandoning Christian refugees. The same people who cry about human rights violations send Ukrainians to their doom while shielding Turkish gangsters. This is the two-tier justice system in action. Western criminals get harsh sentences, Islamic criminals get protection, Ukrainian Christians get sacrificed. The pattern is everywhere once you see it. Stay alert, stay informed, because they're counting on your ignorance. Hit that subscribe button, ring the notification bell, and support independent journalism that tells you what mainstream media won't. Share this video everywhere because the truth needs to spread faster than their lies. What do you think? Comment below. The revolution starts with understanding, and understanding starts with you.